Good morning. Happy Saturday. Even though it's Sunday. Let's have a look at some Greenskinz lists. Sorry. Let's look at this update and see what it means for us as Greenskin players. But first, I'd like, of course, to thank all of my patrons and Baron of Dice. So, if you go to Baron of Dice and use code MDG, you get 5% off. Just, just as a way to say thanks to everybody. Thanks. The best way to support the channel is through Patreon. Let's get started. Okay, so we're not going to go through all of this, obviously. We're just going to see what kind of stuff has affected us as Greenskinz players. Okay, so nothing interesting here. We're going to skip through the points until we get to our nice destruction. And I think overall it's relatively good news overall, but we'll see. So you can see all this red here from Gitz, and this is mostly because of internal balance. You can see that Dang Cold went up 10, Scragrot went up 10, Trug went up 10, Fellwaters 10, and Rockguts a big 20, which means if you were running 5 units of Rockguts, which a lot of people were, 2 reinforced, and I even saw like some... Anyway, it means your list went up 100 points, which is a lot. In my Trog list, I was running 4 units, like 2 reinforced units. And so my list went up 80 points, which is a lot of points to go up. Moreover, I was also running Scragrot, so it's like 90 points. And I was running a Trog Boss, 100 points. It's a lot of points. And then some down points. Kragnos went down 100 points. Oh my. I thought he was fun and playable before this 100-point change. They made another change to him, where you don't get his 3d6 charge for counter charge. And that's fine. Like, I feel like I would take that trade for 100 points, because 3d6 counter charge is just kind of mean. You know, it's like, oh no, you can't seize the center. Like, there's nothing you can do. It's like I put something on the line and we're 18 inches away, and if you start moving at me at all, then it's like, well, I'm gonna hit you on the counter charge. So that's all fine. Coming down 100 points and that change, like, sure, that seems fair to me. And then some spiders went down. We had Web Spinner Shaman go down 10, Web Spinner Shaman on a Ragnarok Spider go down 30. The Flinger went down 20. The War Party went down 20. Shootas went down 10. The Skitterstrand or Ragnarok went down 20. And Spore Splatta Fanatics went down 10. So if we look at these changes in isolation, like just with these minus points here, Spiders going down 20 isn't going to matter. Spiders are at a race to the bottom. They're going to go down and down and down until you can just get enough meat in a list that it's playable. But because their rules are kind of bad and the war scrolls are kind of bad, like, I don't believe there's any point changes that are going to make these spiders suddenly, like, awesome. You know, they'll make them playable, but, like, the base sizes are just too big. I feel like I just need to forget about spiders for a while. Shootas came down 10 because they were 160 points, which is insane. Yep, but still probably not great. Like, running a whole bunch of Stabbas and Shootas still isn't really a thing. And the Spore Splatta Fanatics went down 10, but the problem with the Spore Splatta Fanatics, if we were to actually look at them, it has nothing to do with their points, right? So, like, their damage is fine, but, you know, there's 5 of them with 6 up ward and 1 health, and they have no strike first, like the other Fanatics do, so that strike first is huge, right? It can do a normal move as in the deployment phase, but it moves 2d6, so it's like, you know, sure, it can move up the board a little bit, but it doesn't have a move of 10, you know, it doesn't have a move of 12, it's not doing a huge impact here. And then it, add one of the attack characteristic of melee weapons used by friendly Moonclane units while they're wholly within 12 inches of this unit. So I guess this also includes squigs, right? Adding one to the attack. So they have to be wholly within 12 of this unit. So I don't know. I don't know if Spore Splattas are ever really be good. So they can keep going down in points, but I think they have to drop quite a ways. I don't know. Maybe you'll disagree. Maybe you think that this ability, the Puffstream Frenzy, because it says Moonclan and squigs and stuff for a Moonclan. So +1 attacks on Moonclan is okay. Wholly within 12 is kind of tricky because they they're, you know, kind of slow and unreliable. I guess they do get a thing, but I don't know. I'm moving in deployment, but I don't know if it'll actually pan out to be like playable no matter what the point costs, but we shall see. It's a really deep book, Gloomspite Gitz. I bet you that their next book, they get split into two, just like orcs are split into two books right now. I bet you that it happens. We shall see. Cool. So, I mean, yeah, all these trolls go up. Spiders come down. Squigs kind of stay where they are. So I don't know if this really makes a huge difference. It's going to make a difference in troll lists. But for the rest of the points, it's kind of like, I don't know. Internal balance is good. Rockets were undercosted. I'm not surprised they went up by 20. It's interesting now that Fellwaters and Rockets are the same exact cost. I don't know. We'll see. I have another video I'm going to make pretty quick looking at some actual lists, so stay tuned. Ironjawz are down across the board. We'll start, of course, with Kragnos. So this is great news for Ironjawz. I was playing Kragnos and Ironjawz before Kragnos dropped 100 points. So Kragnos dropping 100 points means that I have some extra room to fit some extra stuff, so that's pretty cool. Gordrak and the Mega Boss on Makrusha both went down 20 points. Mega Boss on Makrusha being 400 points now is interesting. I'm still not really digging it. Again, it's these pie plate bases. Like, they're just so clunky. Mega Boss went down 20 points as well, so that's interesting. Brutes didn't change, though, so I think that's the change that really has to happen. The Mega Boss coming down in points is good, but I think that if Brutes don't come down... Like, if Brutes came down 20 points and they were 180 for 5... I would start experimenting with like Brutes as a front line, but still right now it's just got to be Ardboys. They do so much better with economies of scale. Like, if you give them +1 attack from the Brawl and all this, then they, you know, it's like 50% more attacks, right? So instead of, like, with Brutes, if you add one more, you're adding 33% more attacks. And that's good and fine, but it's like Ardboys, I feel like, are still doing this job a little bit better. Brutes are in a tough spot right now because what they want to do is they want to get reinforced and they want to march into the middle of the map and stand on objectives and really contest and push off objectives. But the problem with them is that because they come in units of 5 and you can only reinforce once, you know, they get into a nice brick of 10, and they have a little bit bigger base sizes, so they take a little bit more, you know, and all this, and they do have 3 attacks, but they just don't do that role as well as Ardboys do right now. Because with Ardboys, instead of 10, there's 20. Okay. That fact plays into the Weird Knob Shaman, which is very important to get that extra power level. And all of those Ardboys, you know, if you charge at them, they get extra rend, so that's cool. And then if you throw a Zogrock on them, and if you throw, like, they just take the buffs better, right? Because they're cheaper for way more bodies. And so if you're going to buff something, it's, you know, they just absorb these buffs a lot better. So Brutes almost want to be in a unit of 10, and they want to be your second brick, right? You want to have a unit of 20 Ardboys, and then beside them, like kind of coming up a little bit behind them, you want to have a reinforced unit of Brutes. But the lists just don't fit all of that right now. Or at least mine don't, and then it's like, well, you need your heroes, and you need your cavalry on the flanks, and all these other things, so it's really tricky. And so until Brutes come down, I think that's kind of where we're going to be stuck. We're not stuck, but we're going to be using Ardboys, I think, as our primary infantry unit until Brutes come down in price. So we'll see. Even with the Mega Boss on foot coming down. Zogrock coming down 30 points is awesome, though, because I was a big fan of Zogrock. I thought that, you know, the Zogrock, the Weird Knob, and the War Chanter were the 3 best heroes in the book, with the exception of Kragnos. But they're really the 3 that are worth playing. And again, you just throw all these buffs on top of the Ardboys. Zogrock on Ardboys with a War Chanter +1 damage buff is nutty. Lots and lots and lots of damage going out, especially if you're being charged. So Zogrock coming down 30 points is great. What else we got? Ragers came down 10 points. Not sure why. Ragers were good already, so thank you for the 10 points. Gorgrunt is coming down 10 points. Sure, this might help them fit into lists a little bit better when you only have 180 points and you're still looking for a flanker, right? Because the Gougers are 220. So now the difference between the Gougers and the Grunts is 40 points. I think it probably needs to get a little bit steeper still. Unfortunately, Gore-Gruntas, I just don't think they're in a good position. Here's why, okay? Auric War Clans. Let's have a look here. So if we're going to find Gore... I was thinking about this the other day. Let's see. Come on, Gore-Gruntas. Where are we now? Fine, you want me to flip through and find you old school? Gore-Gruntas. Here's why. This companion weapon, this charge +1 damage is on a companion weapon. So you can all-out attack to get it to 4 attacks and 3s and 2s, but then it has no rend. So anything, like, it's hard to buff this good profile with anything, right? You can't give it a prayer, you can't give it a spell, you know, you can't give it Zogrock. Like, there's nothing that you can do that's going to buff this, and it has no rend. So it's like, cool, all-out attack, well, 3s and 2s, but still 0 rend, right? This is really rough. This is why. If this Choppa Hacka, right? It's like this should have charge +1 damage, and the Grunted Tusks should be anti-infantry, right? Like, these tusks are gonna pierce through infantry and or anti-cavalry, sorry. They're gonna, you know, it's like the pig itself is anti-cavalry. You're on a horse. I'm on a pig with tusks. My pig and his tusks have anti-cavalry. That's the idea. And then charge +1 damage is the orc itself on the top. Just like Boingrot Bounders. Boingrot Bounders are the same thing. Bounders have charge +1 damage on their Pokin Lance. Right? Charge +1 damage, companion. If this was the same profile for these guys, if this just said charge +1 damage and this said companion and we lost this anti-cavalry, this unit would all of a sudden be so much better, right? Because we would have, you know, 3s and 3s, 1 rend, 2 damage. And at least it has 1 rend, right? So we could do stuff with it, like we could buff it with Zogrock and suddenly that's crit mortals, or we could throw an extra +1 damage on there, or, right? But it sucks because the +1 damage is stuck with this stupid companion. So, like, this is just a War Scroll problem, and this problem is never going to go away until we get literally a new orc book, right? It's like, oh no, like, so, I don't know, we're just kind of stuck. That's the fundamental problem with the Gore-Grunta. Companion, charge +1 damage. Boo earns. Anyway, what were we talking about? What were we talking? We were complaining about Gore-Gruntas, I think. Oh, that's the wrong thing. Oh, I remember what we were doing. Okay, cool. So points coming down for Ironjawz pretty much across the board is good. I've sort of said from the beginning that I think that Ironjawz are, like, the rules are very light, but I think that with the proper points adjustment, I think that we can come in and be strong. Right? We have some very strong things going for us, right? We have lots of dice. We have lots of we have good saves, right? Like, we can do some decent damage. We're kind of hard to shift. Mighty Destroyers is a very good rule. And then in this update, they've also changed it so that you can do your Ironjawz Wah 1 time per hero now, which means we're gonna get, you know, in a 3-drop list, we're gonna get +1 to every, or +1 attacks on 3 different rounds. It's also kind of interesting because it gives the Ardboy Big Boss another role that he can do, which is call a Wah. So now with an Ardboy Big Boss, this is now a Wah that is not a drop. So all of a sudden, I think the Ardboy Big Boss is worth considering again as a unit, right? It's like, if you're gonna take Gordrak, right? Because you can take a Head Stompa. Mega Boss, you can take a Head Stompa. Maw Crusher, you can take a Head Stompa. So actually, the Mega Boss got a little bit better too, because he went down in points 20, and because he can take an Ardboy Big Boss, and so now in that 1 drop, you're taking 2 Wahs, right? So if you want to be a 3-drop, you can have 4 Wahs. We'll see how important it is to have 4 Wahs. I have a feeling that 3 is going to be the key number. You're probably not going to do them on turn 1, and if you do, you can, right? You can do them on turn 1, turn 2, turn 3, and then generally the game is sort of over by that point, one way or the other, right after 3 rounds. So I think 3 drops is interesting now. And taking, yeah, it's a little bit better. So if Brutes were to come down in price and Mega Boss was all of a sudden playable and good, I think the Ardboy Big Boss should be 100 points. He needs to come down in points too. But we could find the points where, you know, suddenly we have a really nasty list where it's like we got a Mega Boss, an Ardboy Boss, you know, reinforced Brutes, reinforced Ardboys, Weird Knob, Zogrock, War Chanter. We're 4 drops with 5 cat. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we can get to a point where I think that it's going to be good and strong. And last for Kruleboyz. So Gobsprat coming down 20 points. Fine. Sure. I think he's got to come down more still, or we have to get out of this meta. But Gobsprat is a 2 caster with 1 drop, and he's got a good War Scroll spell. But who cares about War Scroll spells? We're all casting manifestations, right? So who cares? Kill the boss on Ashtooth, I think, is probably unplayable at any point value. Unfortunately, the thing is with in this edition is that you really need like drops or everything, and so Snatchaboss is very good, right? Vultureboss is very good. Breakaboss is very good. Gobsprat could be with the right point cost. And Swamp Kala Shaman is really good. So I just listed right there 5 heroes that are either very good right now or that could find a point value where they could be very good. So Kill the Boss on Ashtooth just will never be at that point. In 3rd edition, Aaron used to play like a Kill Boss spam list, but that was in 3rd edition where you could just take 6 heroes and they could all be, or 5 heroes or whatever, 5 heroes, and they could all be kill bosses when they were 110 points. But that's not even an option right now, and so like I can't like what do you got? Like you're not taking a Vulture, you're not taking a Swamp, like a Sludge Raker of some variety, you're not taking a Swamp Kala. You want to be 4 drops, you know what I mean? It's like where is the Ashtooth gonna fit in? He's just not, right? He's just not, unfortunately. Kragnos coming down 100 points is fine, but I think of all the destruction armies, I think Kruleboyz is probably the least likely to take a Kragnos. I think we're the least likely army to take a Kragnos. It's not really our style. We don't need the 3d6 charge mobility. We have our sneak mobility. We also have shooting, so it's like in all of our lists, we're going to have some shooting. That doesn't go well. We're also glass cannons. Like, we're not throwing in anvils. We're not, like, what are we throwing in besides a Vulture Boss with his Vulture Dive? Right? So him coming down 100 points is awesome for destruction as a whole, but for Kruleboyz, I don't think it matters at all. I know some people out there are playing Kragnos with Kruleboyz, but I just don't think it's really that optimized. Do it if you're you know into it and you have fun with it, right? But like, who cares? 3d6 charge. Like, come at me, bro. That's my thought with Kruleboyz in general, right? Come at me. I don't need to come at you. And Swamp Boss Scumdrick coming down 20 points. That's cool. This is of course the Sludge Raker that works with Hobgrots, and so if he comes down even a little bit more, maybe I'm thinking that it might be kind of interesting. Like, I'm gonna play some double Sludge Raker lists just for fun, and some double Vulture lists just for fun. And so that list, my double Sludge Raker list, just came down 20 points. I'm not sure if it'll make a difference in points, right? Because I'm not really goofing around with that at the moment because I don't have a second Swamp Boss. Hey, got any good proxy ideas for a Swamp Boss Scumdrick or like an STL idea or anything? Let me know in the comments. Let me know in Discord. Come join Discord, by the way. Awesome folks hanging out. And then last but not least, we have a Marshcallah Sloggoth coming down 20 points. So he can find a point range where he's playable. I still don't think it's 170 points. Again, my problem with the Marshcallah is that he has a hard time serving any particular kind of role. Where's my Marshcallah? There he is. So if we look at he's got a 4-up save, which is good for the army. He has 10 health, which is good with a 4-up save, and he also has troll regeneration. So he's a little bit survivable. He's not very survivable. He's a little bit survivable. He has six moves, so he's not very fast, right? And then he gives run and charge in an AoE, but I don't really know what we're running and charging besides maybe Monstakillas. Like, that's the only thing that I can see him being good for, is getting Monstakillas where they need to be. So, and he doesn't really deal any damage. He has no rend, right, on a 1 damage attack. So this is max. So this nets and snatch-a-sticks is going to deal 0 damage, right? You're not using all out attack on a bad profile like this. It's just not. Well, maybe you will with the claws. 6 dice, 4s and 2s, 1 rend, 2 damage is okay, right? It's a maximum of 12 damage, but realistically, this thing is going to be dealing like 4 damage when it attacks. So it's not particularly survivable. It's not particularly damaging. It doesn't offer a particularly useful utility. Like if this just had like, oh, Gutrippaz can redeploy, like if this had the Vulture ability where Gutrippaz could redeploy 4, it would be a lot better, I think. And it could find a price adjust points, but I'm not sure if this point change doesn't do it for me. And I don't know, it's gonna take a lot. Like if this was 120 points right now, I would consider it instead of a 4th unit of Monster-Killers. Right? But it's not. So right now it's like Monster-Killers are better every single time in this case. Gutrippaz are better every single time instead of a Marshcrawler Slogoth. A Killbow is better every single time. Right? Like basically everything on this list right here, this units list, every one of these things is better than a Marshcrawler Slogoth, and they're cheaper. Like in all honesty, would you rather have a Marshcrawler Slogoth or 3 Boltboyz and 60 points? Like come on, give me a break, right? Like every single time. So overall, I mean, for Gloomspite Gitz, the army just got a little bit worse, of course, overall, right? Ironjawz are getting a little bit of a glow up. We'll see if this is enough to help. I don't think we're quite there yet. I think we need to adjust the brutes before Ironjawz are really scary. We need to be, like, if you want to fit 3 reinforced units of brutes in your list, I think that should be like an option. Like, I wonder what that list looks like. Let's just pull out a calculator really quick here. So if we had, so it's 200 times 2, right? Times 3. That's the cost of our brutes. And then right now with Zogrock, let's take Zogrock. Let's take a Mega Boss for 210. And then we'll take a Weird Knob Shaman for 130. And so that brings us to 1720. Can we fit Ardboys in there? What are Ardboys? 360? Yeah, so we're a little bit over. So, I don't know. Minus 360. What do we have left then? 280? So it's a Hackin' crew. So it's like three reinforced units of brutes, a Hackin' crew, Zogrock, War Chanter, Weird Knob, and then you're just gonna call 3 Waz and just be, like, have a hero following each unit of brutes, and then I don't even know. The big thing right now though is that Kragnos goes into Ironjawz Brawl so well. It's hard to think not taking Kragnos. Yeah, it's also hard to think not taking Ragers, right? Like for the points difference, like 260 for 6 of them. Right? Like, Strike First is so good. So, yeah. And then, of course, we have our changes to our core rules. So we're just going to review some changes and talk about how they're going to affect our different greenskin armies specifically. So there's a change. I'll let you guys read this over. I'm sure you guys have already checked it out from some of the bigger YouTubers, right? Like all the specifics. So we're just going to look at some stuff that is going to specifically be affecting our armies and our lists. So Manifestation's getting a change. So they're a little bit weaker now, right? Because you get bonuses to banishing rolls for like more and more manifestations that your opponent has on the battlefield. So that is, it doesn't matter. It's not a big deal. Manifestations are still really strong. So this, I heard the Honest Wargamer say, I think that this actually benefits armies that have like really good casters, like +1/+2 casters, like really heavy magic armies, right? Because they're going to be able to throw out more manifestations than you and still be able to get rid of your manifestations. So its manifestations aren't over by any means, right? Not over by any means. You can now all-out defense against Unleash or against Covering Fire. So that's probably good for Ironjawz and bad for Boltboyz, right? Like Covering Fire gets a little bit weaker. So, and Priority Target also got a little bit weaker as well. None of these things are super relevant for us. And yeah, I mean, that's really it. Yeah, so Priority Target changed, so it's not your general and his regiment. It's the enemy's general and his honor guard. So I still think that for Kruleboyz, I still think Priority Target is the way to go. Oh, and you also don't get the bonus unless you're within 12 inches. So I still think that Bullboys with priority target is the way to go. I think that if you're trying to kill your enemy's general or his honor guard, I still think it's worth it. I don't really know what else you're going to take. In Kruleboyz, priority target is still going to be super nasty to like teleport your guys away. So, and then in the other two, like in Ironjawz, I still think that the big pig with priority target or with special assignment is the way to go, right? The nerf to priority target only really affects shooting, and it's a good change. Vanguard Raptors with +1 to hit, +1 to wound against everything in your enemy general's regiment is overpowered and ridiculous. So at least with Kruleboyz, right, we can teleport our Bullboys outside of 9, so we're still going to be able to like pew pew pick off targets when we need them. And Bodyguard is not very good, I don't think, in Kruleboyz. I think it's okay. I think if you wanted to do like a Sludge Raker general with Bullboys as Bodyguard, I think it's okay, but my concern is that the Sludge Raker's not that survivable, and so being able to like leaving him exposed for your opponent to pick off and get an easy battle tactic is tough. So if you're going to do that, I would also suggest you're like doing like in a double Sludge Raker list, let's say, where you have Slippery Scumbag on your general, you know, and like then I think it's better because you're able to pass off the wounds onto the Bodyguard. So that's better. But I think in like a standard list, I still think that priority target on Bullboys is still the way to go. You can't really do it on the kill bow anymore because you're not going to be within 12 because you can't teleport the kill bow. So I think most of the time priority target is still going to be good. Look for openings. Your opponent's going to leave themselves vulnerable, teleport within 12, and shoot. Right? Get that +1 to hit, +1 to wound. It's still very strong. They also took Morbid Conjurations, and they increased the Suffocating Gravetide's casting value to 8. So Kronspine looks, I think, a little bit better in Kruleboyz right now, right? Because Kronspine was good before, and now that Gravetide is also on an 8, I think Kronspine gets a little bit better for armies that have +1 casting. I still like Kronspine and Kruleboyz quite a bit. We have trouble holding the front line, and so something a little bit beefier that can get in there and make a mess of things is good. That mobility is also really nice too. They also remove Wild Form from a couple of things, so that's fine. Yeah, I mean, they clarified some stuff, but I still think that the 3 best I still think right now are Kronspine, Morbid Conjurations, and the one with Jaws. For a bit, nope. I can't remember. Primal something. I can't remember what it's called. But those 3 I think are very good. I think that the Morbid Conjurations is a little bit worse now compared to the other 2. But again, it's not a huge shakeup. Morbid Conjurations is still very strong. They still have lots of good stuff inside of them. So it's not going to make a huge difference for anybody. And then last but not least, you know, we just have our so Gloomspite Gitz. So they changed one of the battle traits so that the Light of the Bad Moon also affects companion weapons. This was just an oversight, right? Because it just said, like, if I pick a spider at random, right? So this is crit mortals and companion, and so now they just clarified that it does actually affect this companion weapon, because if it didn't, it would just be silly. If we take another bigger spider, right? It's like, well, this 8 dice thing now crits on 5s. Okay, fine. Not enough to push them over the edge. Web Spitter Shaman, they nerfed them. They went from 5 control to 2 control. Whatever. Yep. They gave Impassable and Cover to the Loon Shrine. Sure, whatever. And then this is where they changed Kragnos. His 3d6 charge. They made it so it's only on your turn. Right? Your charge phase. Not the charge phase now. And then where's the Ironjawz rule? Gloomspite Gitz. I guess it doesn't have to be right beside him. Lumineth. Orc War Clans. So now it's once per turn army, your charge phase. Changed the timing of Ironjawz Wa to once per turn army, your charge phase. So it's no longer once per battle, which means you can do it with every hero in your charge phase. So it means that on 3 of your turns, or 4 of your turns, depending on how you're building your lists, you're gonna get that extra +1 attacks. So that's good. It's a needed rule, and we'll see if that actually is enough to set this army over the top. So let me know what you think. Do you agree with my assessment? Do you think that there's going to be bigger impacts? Let me know. Like, subscribe. Wow.